Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, can you please tell me where and what time you're watching? Thanks. It's colder here than anywhere else on Earth, yet somehow it's also where the world is starting to burn. I suppose that makes sense in a twisted way. After all, change rarely happens where you expect it. I've always loved the cold, the silence. I used to think of Antarctica as a distant paradise untouched by centuries of civilization, but that was before the ice began to melt, before the ancient things buried beneath the glaciers started to wake, before I truly understood fear. I guess I should start by telling you who I am, or rather who I was. My name is Mark. I was a 29-year-old virologist stationed at McKinley Outpost, a remote research station about 200 kilometers inland from what used to be one of Antarctica's largest ice shelves. Climate change and shifting ocean currents have begun to do the unimaginable. The continent's icy armor is retreating, revealing patches of bare earth and stone. Nature has been busy exposing secrets older than anything we've ever encountered. Scientists like me, people with a thirst for the unknown, have flocked here, eager to see what treasures might emerge from the ancient permafrost. Fossils, perhaps. Strange microbes. Data that could redefine our understanding of life's history. But I can't claim my motives were entirely pure. I wanted more than just discovery. I wanted recognition. Maybe I'd uncover a virus that had lain dormant for millennia, study it, unlock the story of life across the ages. Back then it felt romantic. Now, all I want is to forget. We were a team of 8. Myself, Dr. Cohen, our lead paleobiologist, Santos, the geologist, Lynn, the climatologist, Dembe, a field technician with a knack for mechanics, Rafi, a paleontologist, Olivier, our station medic, and Elena, the botanist. And of course, Adam, my best friend and our logistical coordinator. We weren't here for fame, we had a job. Survey the newly exposed land, catalog whatever we could. Most of the team were seasoned veterans of polar expeditions, but for me, it was my first long-term mission. I remember our arrival, the rush of excitement as I stepped off the transport plane, staring at an endless horizon of shimmering ice and freshly uncovered brown rock. We were the first humans to set foot on that land in millions of years. I wish we never had. We found it about 3 weeks in. Late November, Antarctic summer. The sun never truly set, just hovered on the horizon, casting the landscape in an eerie, perpetual twilight. By then, the patch of land we were studying had expanded from a small rocky outcrop to an entire valley of newly revealed earth. Sublimation and melt had uncovered sediment layers no human had ever seen. The day we made the discovery, I was out with Cohen and Rafi. Our small tracked vehicle rumbled along a muddy slope. Mud in Antarctica. I remember how wrong that felt. Rafi was beside himself with excitement, while Cohen muttered that we'd have better luck further down, where icy rivulets carved through the sediment. Then we saw it. An opening in the ground, a cave framed by half-melted ice, water dripping from the edges. The ice had formed a natural vault, sealing something inside for who knows how long. But as the climate shifted, that vault had cracked open, and water pooled at the entrance, forming a doorway into blackness. We decided to take a quick look. Cohen led the way, with Rafi and me close behind, our headlamps slicing through the dark. The ground was uneven, slick with meltwater. Strange mineral formations clung to the ceiling. The air was stale but not unpleasant, at least not at first. About 30 meters in, we reached a section where ice formed a translucent wall. Beneath that thin layer of frost, I saw something dark, something organic. An uneasy feeling crept over me, though I couldn't explain why. Something about it felt wrong. Rafi crouched, scraping gently at the ice. Cohen snapped at him to be careful, but it was too late. The damage was done. Our warm breath, our headlamps, the heat from our bodies, it was enough to accelerate the melting. The frost thinned, revealing a tangled mass of shapes beneath the ice. At first I thought they were roots, or perhaps petrified plants, but as more of the frost sloughed away, I knew this was something else. Bones. Long, twisted bones that didn't match any creature I had ever seen. Cohen's breath hitched. He muttered something about it defying known classifications. His hands trembled as he snapped pictures. Rafi did the same, but I just stood there, transfixed by the half-buried skeleton. Its limbs were contorted, almost as if they had too many joints. The skull, if that's what it was, seemed bulbous, ridged where eyes might have been. We should have left, right then, packed up and never looked back. Instead, we collected a few ice core samples near the strange fossil and returned to base, our minds buzzing with curiosity and excitement. That night, back at McKinley Outpost, I examined a meltwater sample under the microscope, hoping to find traces of ancient microbes. At first glance, it looked disappointingly ordinary, but as I adjusted the focus and added a fluorescent dye, I saw movement, a faint, erratic flicker, tiny viral particles perhaps hidden among the melting permafrost microbes. I isolated them, fascinated. They were odd, larger than normal viruses, segmented in strange ways. I labeled the sample TV-19. I had no idea what it would do. How could I? The next few days were a blur. Word of the fossil spread among us. Cohen and Rafi argued in hushed voices over classification. Santos pored over geological maps, muttering about sediment layers that placed the remains millions of years before known Antarctic ecosystems. Lynn voiced concerns about pathogens, but Olivier, our medic, insisted we'd be fine if we followed standard precautions. He was careful. Maybe too careful. Elena kept to herself, pressing thawed plant samples between sheets of plastic. Adam, bless him, did his best to keep our spirits up, brewing coffee, cracking jokes, telling me we'd be famous for this discovery. I kept studying the virus. Over 2 days, its activity increased when I warmed the sample to human body temperature. I watched as it latched onto common bacteria, hijacking them with terrifying efficiency. It was aggressive, unstoppable. I remember warning Olivier that we needed to be cautious. He nodded, agreeing to enforce stricter quarantine measures on all samples. We had suits, masks, but we got complacent. A few days later, one of our storage units malfunctioned. The power flickered. Dembe had warned us the backup generator was unstable. A brief rise in temperature inside the containment fridge may have allowed the virus to replicate. I was the first to notice the error. I rushed to fix it, fumbling with the control panel. When I opened the fridge, a rush of slightly warmer air escaped. Without thinking, I inhaled sharply. Startled by a test tube slipping from its rack, I barely noticed. I had just breathed in the future of my nightmares. At first, nothing happened. I felt fine. My mind was elsewhere, on Elena and Rafi, who had returned to the cave for more samples. On Cohen, who was studying the photos of the skeleton, piecing together what it could be. On Adam and Santos, who had gone out to survey a melt pool for microorganisms. Then, the next morning, I woke up with a headache. A strange taste lingered in my mouth, metallic and sour. My throat felt tight. I brushed it off as dry air, maybe a mild cold. I took some aspirin and went about my day. Olivier noticed I looked pale but said nothing. He was busy treating Cohen, who had cut his hand opening a crate. Just a small wound. Nothing serious. That afternoon, Elena and Rafi returned from the cave. They were soaked, exhausted, and eerily quiet. Elena in particular seemed disturbed. "We found more remains," she said softly when I asked. "Not just one skeleton, many." Her voice wavered. All twisted, fused. Not like animals, something else. Rafi wouldn't speak at all. He just stared at the floor. That night, the first sign that something was seriously wrong appeared. We gathered in the mess hall, trying to cling to normalcy. A pot of rehydrated stew, stale crackers, weak coffee. I sat at the table, my eyes drifting over my colleagues' faces. Cohen was hunched over, rubbing his hands. Cohen rubbed his bandaged hand, while Lynn nervously tapped her fingers against the steel tabletop. Adam shot me a worried glance, noticing my silence. Then, without warning, Elena pushed back from the table, knocking over her chair. It clattered loudly, making everyone jump. Her face was flushed, her breathing ragged. She clutched her chest, panic in her eyes. "I feel hot," she gasped. "Something's wrong." Before Olivier could reach her, she collapsed, convulsing violently. Her eyes rolled back, foam flecking her lips. My heart pounded as I rushed over to help, Olivier beside me. We tried to hold her still, but her body burned beneath my hands, scorching, as if a fever had ignited inside her in mere seconds. Olivier shouted for a med kit. Adam bolted to grab it while the rest of us stood frozen, forming a helpless circle around her spasming body. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the seizure stopped. Elena lay there, breathing shallowly. Olivier and I hoisted her up and carried her to the infirmary, Lynn trailing close behind. The others stayed back, stunned into silence. For the next hour, we struggled to stabilize her. She thrashed in delirium, her eyes unfocused. I tried speaking to her, calming her, but she only whispered nonsense. "They're hungry," she muttered. "So hungry." I heard them in the dark. After a massive dose of antipyretics and sedatives, she finally slipped into a restless sleep. Olivier stepped back, breathing heavily, his forehead creased. "Some kind of infection," he said. "Her temperature's off the charts. I've never seen anything like it." I thought of the virus, my samples, our lax precautions. I said nothing, but guilt gnawed at me. I needed to check for viral markers, but first I had to see if anyone else was showing symptoms. By the next morning, Elena's condition had worsened. Strange lesions had formed on her back and neck, blackened, raised, angry welts. She scratched at them, tearing her own skin, drawing blood. Olivier tried every antiviral we had. Experimental drugs, last resort treatments, nothing helped. If anything, they made her worse. She hissed and moaned in her fevered state, muttering again about hunger, about things moving beneath the ice. In the lab, I worked feverishly, scanning her blood samples under the microscope. What I saw made my blood run colder than any Antarctic wind. The virus, TV-19, was everywhere, coursing through her bloodstream, replicating at a staggering rate. But it wasn't just multiplying, it was changing her, mutating her cells, stripping away normal human structures. It attacked her DNA like a parasite, rewriting her from the inside out. The more tests I ran, the more horrific the truth became. The virus didn't just kill, it transformed. Her cells were changing shape, sprouting strange root-like tendrils. Muscle tissue broke down, then reformed, stronger but twisted. Crystallized fibers laced through her organs. The virus was reshaping her, making her into something else. I reported my findings to the group. Olivier's eyes were haunted. Adam placed a trembling hand on my shoulder. "This is impossible," Cohen whispered, shaking his head. But denial was useless. We could all see it. Elena was no longer fully human. She looked thinner, but her muscles twitched with unnatural strength. When Olivier tried to take another sample, she snapped at him, biting at the air like an animal. Then we noticed something else. Rafi and Santos were missing. They had left early to return to the fossil site, taking the second vehicle without telling anyone. That worried me. What if they were infected too? We tried the radio. No response. Outside, the storm had worsened. High winds howled against the outpost, snow whipping in furious gusts. Our brief weather window was gone. Now, we were trapped with whatever horror we had unleashed. By midday, Elena had slipped into a coma. Her eyes half open, glassy, unseeing. Her limbs stiffened, her body rigid. Olivier insisted on strapping her to the bed for her own safety. Dembe hesitated, then quietly asked if we should take other measures. No one wanted to say it. No one wanted to think about the unthinkable. Murdering a colleague. I caught Adam's gaze. He knew. We both knew. That evening, Santos and Rafi returned, or at least, something did. They stumbled through the door, pale, shaking. We rushed to greet them, relief flashing through us. Then, horror. We saw their faces. Both men had lesions identical to Elena's. Their eyes were bloodshot, pupils dilated and distorted, as though something was pulling at their very biology. Their speech was slurred, filled with incoherent murmurs about a sinkhole near the cave and shapes shifting beneath the earth. They spoke of singing, an eerie, low humming that seemed to come from underground. Then, without warning, they collapsed. We dragged them to the infirmary, laying them in beds opposite Elena. Now we had 3 infected, each at different stages of transformation. Olivier did everything he could, IV fluids, antiviral treatments, sedation, but nothing made a difference. The virus continued its relentless progression, reshaping their flesh. The rest of us, Adam, Cohen, Lynn, Dembe, and I, gathered in the mess hall. The lights flickered while the wind howled outside. We debated our options. Quarantine was the obvious choice, lock the infected in the infirmary. But what if they broke out? Dembe suggested barricading the door. Cohen recoiled at the idea, horrified at treating our own colleagues like rabid animals. Lynn sobbed, whispering that if we ever returned home, this thing could spread to the world. That was the most terrifying realization. What if we couldn't contain it? We were isolated, yes, but supply ships and planes would eventually come. If the virus got beyond us, what kind of nightmare would we unleash on humanity? A wave of dizziness hit me. My throat burned. I stifled a cough into my sleeve, hoping no one noticed. The next morning, Elena changed. We awoke to screams from the infirmary. Cohen had gone to check on them early. We rushed after him and found Elena sitting upright in her bed, restraints snapped clean. She hissed, exposing teeth that seemed sharper than before. Half of her face was covered in black lesions. Cohen stood frozen, and in an instant she lunged. His scream tore through the room as she slammed him into the supply cabinets, shattering glass. Olivier rushed forward, trying to pull her off, but she shoved him away with unnatural strength. Terror paralyzed me as I watched her grab Cohen's arm and bend it backward with a sickening crack. His agonized cries sent shivers down my spine. Dembe and Adam sprang into action. Adam swung a fire extinguisher at Elena's shoulder, knocking her back. She shrieked, staggering, her eyes locking onto him. For a fleeting moment, I swore she recognized him. Her expression wavered, as if confused. Then she snarled. Olivier dragged Cohen into the corridor, leaving a trail of blood. I grabbed a chair, bracing myself. Behind me, Lynn sobbed. Elena advanced, her body contorting, limbs twisting unnaturally. Then behind her I saw Rafi and Santos stirring in their beds. Their bodies jerked violently, the virus waking them. If they all turned, we'd be overwhelmed. "Get out!" I yelled. Adam nodded, pushing Lynn ahead. Dembe gripped the extinguisher like a weapon. As we backed toward the door, Rafi tumbled off his bed, landing on all fours. His bones jutted unnaturally, a grinding noise echoing through the room as his body twisted. We barely made it into the corridor before Dembe slammed the infirmary door shut. Adam and I shoved a heavy equipment cart against it. Inside, furious pounding and scraping erupted. They were trapped, for now. Cohen's moans filled the hallway. Olivier ripped open his shirt, inspecting the grotesque angle of his broken arm. His face was pale, shock setting in. "We need splints. Painkillers," Olivier muttered. His voice wavered. She snapped his arm like a twig. I knelt beside Cohen, trembling. He needed medical care, but the real fear loomed over us. Any contact with infected blood, even the smallest drop, could spread this thing. "Olivier," I whispered, "do you think... could he be infected?" Elena had scratched him. There was blood. Olivier's haunted eyes met mine. I don't know. He worked fast, disinfecting the wound, bandaging it as Cohen slipped into unconsciousness. We carried him to the lounge, placing him on a couch. Lynn hovered anxiously. Dembe paced, still gripping the extinguisher like a shotgun. Adam sat against the wall, head in his hands. A cough rattled my chest, deep and painful. My skin burned with fever, sweat trickling down my spine. Fear wrapped around me like a vice, tightening with every breath. Number not me. Not now. We had no choice. We had to leave. It sounded absurd. The weather was worsening, and our tracked vehicles might not survive the journey to the nearest station. But staying meant certain death, or worse, the release of this nightmare into the world. We had to isolate ourselves or find help. Dembe insisted we try to radio McMurdo Station. Adam reminded him that McMurdo was too far. No one would reach us in time. Lynn wanted to end this now, to burn the infirmary, destroy the infected before it was too late. But we had no reliable weapons, no flamethrowers. Olivier refused to even consider it. They had been our colleagues. My head throbbed. The conversation blurred as nausea and fever churned inside me. The virus was inside me. I knew it. That morning, in secret, I tested my blood. A single smear under the microscope. I saw them. Viral particles writhing inside my cells. I was a ticking time bomb. I didn't tell the others. Maybe I should have, but I was terrified. Terrified of what they'd do to me. Terrified that I would become one of them. That night, the infirmary door rattled, scratching, clawing. The wood splintered, the equipment cart shifted. They were getting stronger. Cohen woke briefly, delirious with fever. He wasn't far behind. Olivier and I exchanged a knowing glance, another one infected. Soon he'd be joining them. We came up with a desperate plan. We'd load one of the tracked vehicles with supplies and drive as far as possible. It could mean death by exposure, but at least we'd die human. Maybe we could loop back, find another outpost. Or maybe we'd just drive into the endless white until we froze, taking the virus with us. But first we had to deal with our infected colleagues. Leaving them free was unthinkable. If they escaped after we were gone, they might migrate, survive somehow, or stay dormant until rescue crews arrived. If that happened, the virus would spread, beyond Antarctica, beyond control. I looked at Adam and saw the torment in his eyes. He didn't want to kill anyone. He was gentle by nature, but we both knew what had to be done. We divided tasks. Lynn and Dembe would gather fuel and find a way to burn the infirmary. Olivier and Adam would prepare the vehicle, pack rations. I told them I'd help Lynn, but first, I snuck into the lab. I needed to check something. One last hope. Any possible cure. My fever worsened. My hands trembled as I handled the chemicals. The virus resisted everything we threw at it. Heat, antivirals. Nothing worked. It adapted too fast, evolving in real time. It shouldn't have been possible. I stared at my reflection in the polished steel. My eyes were bloodshot. Small black specks dotted my collarbone. It was happening. Soon, my body would twist. My mind would slip away. I couldn't let that happen. Not beyond these walls. I grabbed a syringe and filled it with a sedative. A failsafe. A way out if I lost control. Then came the screams. I bolted into the corridor. The infirmary door had burst open. Rafi and Santos were free, crawling out, no longer fully human. Their spines twisted beneath torn clothing. Their eyes gleamed with a ravenous hunger. Elena stepped forward behind them, her jaw unhinged, blood and saliva dripping from her chin. Dembe shouted and swung the fire extinguisher, striking Santos in the skull. The creature shrieked but barely reacted. It grabbed Dembe's arm and hurled him aside. Lynn hurled a canister of ethanol at Rafi. It shattered, soaking him. She flicked on a lighter. I had no idea where she found it and tossed it forward. Flames erupted. Rafi screamed as fire engulfed him. The stench of burning flesh filled the corridor. Elena lunged at me. I stumbled back, frozen in terror. Her arms stretched unnaturally, fingers lengthened into claws. I had only one weapon. I raised the syringe. As she closed in, I jabbed it into her neck and slammed the plunger down. She roared, swatting me aside. The sedative might not work, but maybe, just maybe, it would slow her down. Adam rushed in, wielding a metal pole. He struck Elena from behind, drawing her attention. Olivier struggled to pull Dembe free. Santos's grip tightened. I saw Lynn desperately trying to contain the flames, but smoke had already thickened the corridor. The alarm wailed. I coughed, choking, my fever raging. My head spun. I stumbled into a side room, barely able to stay upright. I heard Dembe scream. Adam shouted my name. Guilt and terror warred inside my chest. Moments later, Adam found me, dragging me out as we both coughed. "We have to go," he said, his voice cracking. Dembe's gone." Lynn appeared behind him, tears streaking her soot-smeared face. Olivier was nowhere in sight. We stumbled toward the storage bay where the tracked vehicle waited. Cohen was there, slumped against a crate, his breathing ragged. He looked up at us, his eyes hollow. "I'm infected," he murmured. "I can feel it." His hand trembled as he picked up a flare gun and aimed it at himself. "Go," he whispered. "Go now." I ran, half limping, one arm over Adam's shoulders. Lynn followed. Behind us, screams and animalistic shrieks filled the air. As we climbed into the vehicle, a muffled pop echoed through the outpost. Cohen's flare gun. I prayed it had been quick. Adam revved the engine. The storm had eased slightly, but visibility was still terrible. The heavy treads crunched over slush and ice, carrying us into the unknown. In the rearview mirror, McKinley Outpost burned, flames flickering as we left it behind. Inside the cab, silence reigned except for the rumble of the engine. Adam stared straight ahead, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. I coughed again, feeling the virus clawing at my insides. My skin itched. I thought about telling them. I almost did. But what good would it do? They'd be forced to kill me or abandon me, and we were in the middle of nowhere. If I jumped out, the virus would freeze with me, locked in my corpse. That might be the best solution, but I was a coward. I wanted a few more minutes of life. It's strange how much you cling to life when you know it's about to be wrenched away. We drove until the fuel gauge dipped dangerously low. The ice had receded here, revealing barren rock. Lynn's sobs had quieted. Adam's face was ghostly pale. Noticing my shivering, he asked, "You okay?" I lied. "Just nerves." We stopped near a ridge where the wind howled across the exposed stone. Adam suggested setting up a small camp, trying the radio one last time. If no one answered, we'd find a crevasse and bury ourselves with the virus forever. I saw the anguish in his eyes. Lynn stepped outside to set up the antenna. Adam stayed with me. I sat in the passenger seat, my body aching, black lesions creeping up my neck. He hadn't noticed, or maybe he was in denial. My fingers brushed the empty syringe casing in my pocket. No sedative left. My vision blurred. I tried to focus on Adam's voice as he spoke softly, reminiscing about better days. How we once thought Antarctica was a frontier of knowledge, not horror. He apologized for not protecting me, as if this was his fault. A hunger stirred inside me, my nails dug into the seat, my teeth clenched. I realized this was it. Minutes. That's all I had left before I lost control. I reached for the door handle. "Mark?" Adam asked, confused. I stepped out into the cold. The wind bit at my face, my legs wobbled, but I forced myself forward. Adam called my name, but I quickened my pace. I didn't want him to see. Lynn stood by the antenna 20 meters away. She looked up, eyes narrowing. She noticed my gait, my posture. Suspicion dawned on her face. She reached for a wrench, gripping it like a weapon. I stopped, panting. My fingers twitched. The virus screamed in my veins, urging me to spread, to feed. "Lynn," I croaked. "Back away. I'm infected." Her face drained of color. She shouted for Adam. I shook my head, tears freezing on my cheeks. "Don't come closer," I rasped. "I'll kill you if you do. I can't control it." My throat burned. My vision wavered. I made my decision, the only one I had left. I turned and ran, stumbling down a slope of loose gravel and ice. Adam shouted behind me, his footsteps pounding after mine. But I pushed forward. My limbs ached. My bones ground against each other as they began to shift. I wouldn't let the monster take them. Up ahead, I spotted a thin patch of ice covering a crevasse. Perfect. The ice was fragile, melting at the edges. Without hesitation, I leaped onto it. Cracks splintered beneath my feet. Another step. Fractures spiderwebbed outward. I glanced back. Adam stood on the ridge, his face twisted in horror. I forced a smile, if only for a second. He reached for me, screaming my name. I raised a trembling hand in farewell. Then I stomped down. The ice shattered. I plunged into the abyss. Frigid air rushed past me. The crevasse walls blurred. The virus screamed in my veins. But I knew, soon, the cold and the impact would silence it. As I fell, I pictured Antarctica before all this. Frozen, pristine, before human hands disturbed it. Before the monsters, the virus, the ancient bones. I imagined my colleagues as they were, laughing, excited about discovering something new. I hoped Adam and Lynn would survive, that they'd find a way to warn the world. They were better than me, braver. Maybe they'd find peace. The darkness closed in. The wind howled. And somewhere, beneath it all, I swore I heard that ancient hunger wailing, furious at being denied its prey. But it would die with me. Down here, frozen beneath the ice, where it belongs. If you found this record, these last words I managed to preserve, heed them. This virus, this thing we unearthed, it must never escape Antarctica. It belongs entombed in the ancient ice. Let it stay forgotten. And if you're the poor soul who has stumbled upon this, run. It may already be too late, but for the love of everything still alive, run. This version keeps the same length while making it flow more naturally. Let me know if you'd like any changes.